I'm Talia Ricci. Tonight, police say the investigation into a body found in Leslieville Monday has now been deemed a homicide.
There are obvious signs of trauma to the body, including some dismemberment.
We'll have the latest on the investigation and what is known about the female victim. Plus,
just really hope that next time people are more careful with the surroundings of their home when it comes to fire alarms.
A plea from the loved ones of the family killed in a Brampton house fire, and a warning from fire officials. And
if passed, this legislation will ensure that Ontario is well equipped to fight any future pandemic.
A plan for future pandemics, the promises the province is making when it comes to PPE and being more prepared. Toronto police say the investigation into a woman's body found in a garbage bag in the city's East End is now considered a homicide. The woman has not yet been identified. Jessica Ng has the latest tonight and a warning: some of the content and images in this story are disturbing.
Police tape lingers on the street and the ground where a pool of blood recently dried.
Still see the blood here.
This resident says he was walking in the area yesterday morning and wanted to use a shopping cart he found tilted. He attempted to move a garbage bag that was in the way.
Did not open the bag. I was too scared to. Because I knew exactly what was inside that bag. I didn't want to believe what I just felt.
Toronto police say around 1:30 Monday afternoon, a community member alerted them to the discovery.
An investigation ensued and is now deemed a homicide investigation.
Police say the victim was 5 feet 2 inches and approximately 118 pounds with dark shoulder-length hair. She was found dismembered in a garbage bag on the south side of Eastern Avenue, right about here. Rule says a post-mortem showed the woman, who was between 20 and 40 years of age, also showed other signs of trauma. She is yet to be identified, but Rule says she was wearing a red shirt and had a distinct design on her toes and fingernails.
Anyone who recognizes this design is asked to contact the homicide unit immediately.
Neighbors still feeling unsettled by the events.
I just felt sick to my stomach right away. It's such an upsetting image.
Others said they saw garbage bags in the area before the body was discovered, but wouldn't have suspected one of them contained a body.
We thought it's a garbage bag. Somebody just dumped the garbage there.
Investigators are appealing to anyone who is walking or driving by Eastern and Berkshire between 10 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. Monday.
If you observed anyone in that area pushing a foldable shopping cart filled with what would appear to be black waste bag, contact Toronto Police Homicide Unit in the event that your vehicle is equipped with a dash camera.
Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
The relatives of the family that died in a Brampton house fire are stressing the importance of working smoke alarms. Today, firefighters revealed they are finding more homes in that neighborhood without them. Ali Chiasson has the latest tonight from the scene of the tragedy.
A family of 5 gone.
My brother and his kids and his wife were full of life. They were really loving and very caring and pure-hearted people. And I really feel like it's just really devastating, and we're gonna miss them.
For Bisma Ali, standing outside her brother's house today wasn't just devastating, it's surreal.
What happened with my family is something that you would usually hear about but not really go through.
Neighbors reported seeing flames start in the living room on the main floor just after 2 o'clock in the morning, and it spread quickly from there.
You have seconds to get out. We are not just saying that it's a fire department. It is literally seconds to get out.
The Office of the Fire Marshal is investigating the origin and cause of the fire.
The Ali O'Day family had just bought their home last year, and they recently finished renovating it. Some family members expressed concern that the smoke alarms hadn't been installed yet.
I can say from the grandfather who attended the scene last night was very clear that he felt that there was not. We will confirm that as part of our investigation, as we always do.
Even though the fire investigation is in its early stages, Ontario Fire Marshal John Pegg says working smoke alarms often mean the difference between life and death.
That if you had a fire that started in an area of your home, as I said, it burns so fast and so black. If that closest smoke alarm went off, even if you're in the other end of the house, you'll hear that alarm and you have the chance to get out. Flip side, if you don't have working smoke alarms, that fire has now spread throughout the house and potentially blocks your exit.
While investigators sift through the debris for any leads, firefighters went door to door.
Some of our firefighters and fire prevention officers were in homes in the immediate area just today, and we're finding no working smoke alarms with batteries removed in this immediate vicinity where 5 people just died. It's honestly, it's completely unacceptable.
I just really hope that next time, in scenarios like this, people are more careful with the surroundings of their home when it comes to fire alarms and smoke detectors, and are more vigilant about it.
But for the families affected, knowing what started the fire and how it was able to spread doesn't really bring closure.
I can't believe I won't see them again. Yeah.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Brampton.
Police will no longer be the first to respond to mental health crisis calls in some parts of the city. The change comes as part of a new pilot project aimed at bringing a community-led approach to crisis intervention.
The Toronto Community Crisis Service allows us to implement an alternative to police responding to mental health crisis calls, creating a community-led, client-centered, trauma-informed response to non-emergency response calls and wellness checks. This is something that is going to be good for the police too, but most of all, it's going to be good for the people that we are all pledged to support.
As part of the new program, a mobile team of 2 people will be the first on scene following a 911 mental health crisis call. Those teams will usually include a harm reduction worker and a nurse, or an Indigenous elder and a de-escalation expert. Police will only be called if a crisis call turns violent. Crisis service advocates say this strategy for dealing with mental health emergencies is the right move.
From communities that have experienced over-policing, or for communities where connecting to services is not as easy as it is for others, these kinds of low barrier, low threat, kinds of ability to connect is going to be really, really important.
The pilot program will launch in Toronto's downtown east area on Thursday and then in Scarborough on April 4th. 2 more pilots will launch in the northwest and downtown west areas in July. Well, increased speed limits on 6 provincial highways are here to stay. The province says as of April 22nd, the speed limit for 6 selected highway sections will be permanently changed to 110 kilometers per hour.
Each section has been carefully chosen based on several factors, including the ability to accommodate higher speed limits.
Some of the highways include the QEW, the 401, and the 400. The move comes after the province launched a pilot project to test out the higher speed limits in 2019. Since then, the Ministry of Transportation says it has been monitoring each section for safety and has found no increase in risk following the change. Meteorologist Colette Kennedy joins us now for a look at the forecast, and it really warmed up as the day went on today.
Yeah, and certainly when you're comparing today to yesterday, of course, it felt very balmy. All right, maybe not quite balmy, but we're still way below seasonal with the numbers. Just having a look at our daytime highs from today, it was a struggle, but at least getting above freezing. So there's your improvement there over Monday. And then Wednesday, things are going to be declining somewhat in terms of what's going on with this active weather moving in. And earlier than that, coming in through the late overnight into southwestern Ontario with some, wet snow possible, but mostly worried about some ice pellets and freezing rain. And then as we get towards the end of the morning commute, that starts to edge its way into the GTA. We have that risk towards midday, and then eventually we will get into a situation where it's going to turn over to rainfall. But I'm going to walk you through all of this and also show you what we have in terms of that special weather statement. That's all coming up. -4 tonight, tomorrow, that high of 2, Talia.
Thanks, Colette. The new daycare deal between the province and Ottawa is being seen as a win for those in the sector. However, early childhood educators say the plan may not be enough to retain the workers taking care of children. Lisa Shing explains.
And I really, really enjoyed it until I realized, here's what, 2 years into it, I can't do this.
Savitri Sinanan was an early childhood educator for 4 years before going back to school to try and get into the administrative side of things. She made about $14 an hour.
The compensation, the no benefits, the exploitation. Oh my goodness, that was just too much,
Many ECEs say the province's plan to boost wages as part of the $10 a day daycare deal isn't good enough. The new minimum wage for ECEs is $18 an hour, rising $1 each year until it hits $25.
You're doing a lot of that education piece as well. You're also doing so much care work that's so important and integral to the work.
The Association of Early Childhood Educators says it should be $25 an hour right now.
It really showed to me that there is this neglect of the workforce that's going to harm so many people, so many early childhood educators, but ultimately going to harm all of Ontario because we're not going to build as quickly as we all want.
They deserve more money. That's my opinion. We're going to work on that.
The Premier agreed with her yesterday at the announcement and says he's open to talking.
The job is very, very difficult. It's a job I wouldn't be able to do. They have a special skill set and they deserve to get paid appropriately. And we'll work as quickly as possible and collaborate with stakeholders.
While the province plans to add 86,000 new daycare spaces by 2026, Vickerson says that won't happen if wages don't increase faster. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
The provincial government says it's planning for the next pandemic, releasing today what it calls its plan to stay open. Lorenza Redikoff has that story.
We cannot allow ourselves to be unprepared again.
3 government ministers announced a pandemic preparedness plan for after COVID-19.
If passed, this legislation will ensure that Ontario is well equipped to fight any future pandemic.
Starting next spring, nursing students could receive free tuition if they agree to work for 2 years in an underserved community. The temporary wage enhancement for personal support workers would become permanent, plans the government previously announced. And there'd be more spots at medical schools to add doctors. The opposition sees this as a last-minute attempt ahead of the election in June.
There doesn't seem to be any urgency whatsoever in this government's moves. I mean, we've been hearing for some time that our healthcare system is in crisis. Our home care system is in crisis. Our long-term care system is in crisis. People are leaving the healthcare professions.
Also in this plan, ensuring there's more PPE available, made in Canada, to avoid international supply chain issues.
I'm very confident that we'll hit over 90% by December, so we'll never be vulnerable in that vulnerable position that we were in.
The government says now less than half of PPE for a stockpile is domestic.
Every province in this country has created a stockpile of critical products. There isn't one organization in the country that knows where they all are.
This business professor is also a nurse. She says data on how much PPE there is and where need to be digitized.
We were manually counting how many masks do we have in every organization today in a pandemic. You can't manually count. You need to automate it. It needs to be there at the click of a button.
She says Ontario didn't learn the lessons from SARS and hopes this time the province will be prepared. Lorenza Redikoff, CBC News, Toronto.
The Greater Toronto Hockey League released a scathing report of its own organization today. A full year of research, surveys, and consultation found that overt discrimination and inequity are pervasive across the league. Chris Glover has that story.
I think it's all good.
The hockey bag is one thing, but preparing for racist insults being hurled at his boys is way harder, says Raheem Kareem.
Having to explain something like that is a little bit heartbreaking. Racism starts with the people who are in power making those changes.
Today, a commitment from the GTHL, it will change, following the release of a scathing independent review that found overt and systemic discrimination in the league.
I was certainly disappointed by the extent that came to light.
They've opened up the league for us to look at it upside down and sideways.
Carl Subban was part of the review. 3 of his sons play professional hockey and have faced racism.
Holding his head, his helmet is off.
Including his son Jordan in the ECHL just a couple of months ago when someone reportedly made a monkey gesture towards the black defenseman.
Racism has been embedded in our society for far too long.
While the NHL continues to struggle with tackling race in a white-predominant sport.
We've been
undervalued and we've been overlooked.
The review of the GTHL made 44 recommendations, including mandating a minimum 30% BIPOC and 40% female representation on the board of directors, changing all offensive team names like the Mississauga Blackhawks, requiring suspensions due to discrimination come with education, and creating an anonymous complaint hotline along with supports.
There wouldn't be PK Subban playing in the NHL and doing all the things he's doing off the ice if he wasn't able to work through it.
For one of Kareem's sons, it's too late. He's already quit hockey, partly due to racism. Still, the dad's optimistic.
It shows that they are trying to make a change.
If the league takes all 44 recommendations as it's committed to, he says hockey organizations will eventually better reflect Canada. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
The sport of cricket is growing in popularity in Ontario, and tonight in Brampton, the Premier was on hand for the spring launch of the Premier's Cup School Cricket. Young athletes say it's exciting to see the sport gaining so much prominence here at home.
I found out that it was like a first national sport, but it wasn't too popular at that time after the other sports were introduced. And then later on now, it's a very famous sport. It's growing at a good pace, and with the support of Oscar and everyone else, I believe the sport will skyrocket even more.
The Ontario Schools Cricket Association is actively providing cricket programs to youth across the province. It's also building programs in schools through partnerships with the federal government and the Canadian Tire Corporation. And there's a live look at the city tonight. -1 currently, and it's expected to get pretty messy out there tomorrow. Colette's back now with our extended forecast, and I think you promised us an update on that wild Wednesday weather we're expecting.
Yes, well, they do call it hump day, and it is going to be a hump that we have to get over. I'd encourage you to take extra time, allow extra time, because it is going to be tricky on our roadways. So we're talking about that freezing rain and even some ice pellets, that mix, and then temperatures will soar. This is what we get to once we get over the hump on Thursday, but with some lingering showers into that day as well. Also windy conditions in here. So all of that put together, all these areas into our special weather statement for the wintry mix for tomorrow. Comes in overnight into southwestern Ontario. A few wet flurries possible before it gets into more of that ice pellet or freezing drizzle, freezing rain when it freezes on contact. And then you'll turn into showers as we get towards your morning commute. Late part of the morning commute here for the west end of Lake Ontario around the Golden Horseshoe and into the city, and then stretching into midday is when we have that chance of really getting into the messy conditions here. Now, the winds will really pick up tomorrow night, more so into Thursday, but watch out for that with the wet conditions. And you'll see into Thursday, although we're going to get those warmer temperatures, yeah, we're going to have some wet weather in there too. So there'll be a break in the precipitation before we get into that tail end where it becomes rain, but that's when that temperature will have rolled up and pushed into double digits on Thursday. So just having a look at some of those stronger winds that we will be seeing, some of those wind gusts exceeding 60 kilometers an hour at times, and then as we go towards Thursday, perhaps even some winds approaching 70 kilometers an hour. So kind of, it's a little harder to enjoy the mild temperatures, but I'm sure we'll manage somehow. Not mild tonight, still below freezing, and looking at that tonight as well, all around the Golden Horseshoe, where we have quiet conditions overnight tonight. It's not till tomorrow that we get into it in our area. There's that spike in temperatures on Thursday. Hey, when we get a little bit into April, Talia, it looks like things are finally going to level off a little bit, and we'll get a bit more consistency.
Looking forward to that. Thanks, Colette. Ontario is boosting a foreign homebuyer tax to 20% in an effort to curb rising home prices. The tax will also be expanded to cover the entire province. It had previously been set at 15% and only applied in the densely populated Greater Golden Horseshoe region. The province says the changes will take effect on Wednesday. Tech company Meta, formerly known as Facebook, is adding roughly 2,500 job openings in Toronto to build the so-called metaverse.
It's always preferable, in my view, to be physically present with people, but when you can't, for various reasons, whether cost, expense, difficulty, the metaverse is going to allow us to be physically present, even when we can't be physically.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford was also on hand to learn about the metaverse. The company says its new Toronto tech hub will grow with office and remote staff for the next 5 years. Most roles will be focused on software engineering, as Meta tries to build a digital space that can be accessed instantly with reality devices and mobile apps. The tech brand is also looking to gain research from Canadian institutions, using over $500,000 in research grants to bring the metaverse to life. Finally tonight, a new immersive exhibit has come to Toronto celebrating the works of Frida Kahlo. We spoke with Kahlo's family about seeing her work come to life.
We cried. Yes, I cried. When I see my grandmother, Christina, I was crying because it's very emotional. And to hear something and to feel, you can hear her heartbeat. We are proud of being her family, and it's also a responsibility to have the legacy and to preserve the legacy that we have.
The exhibit was created with digital art by an Italian artist who's also the creator of Immersive Van Gogh. Using projections, photography, and drawings, the Kahlo exhibit occupies all 600 cubic feet of the Lighthouse Immersive building at 1 Yonge Street. And that's our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. Good night.